You whisper in your sleep. All you do if you were free. The locks there on your cage, they weren't put there by me. Now with all that you can dream, and all the wisdom you have gleaned, the tears are rolling like a stream. I see it coming back to me. But do you think it makes you weak to love me? Do you think it's make-believe when you hold on to me? Do you think I'm gonna leave when you show, when you show, when you show me? Now you're struggling to breathe, and I don't know what you need. We'll call the doctor on day 3. Honey, that's what we agreed. But do you think it makes you weak to love me? Do you think it's make-believe when you hold on to me? Do you think I'm gonna leave when you show, when you show, when you show me? I've been lost to come find me. I've been hiding to come find me. I've been running to come find me. I've been lost to come find me. I've been running to come find me. I've been hiding to come find me.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, bright and early here on a big day in Emeryville, California, and it's a high honor to connect with a total originalist and somebody who's trying to carve out her own path in the musical paradigm of the 21st century. Chelsea Coleman, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Very glad to be here.
Can you just talk about your musical pedigree or lack thereof? I mean, were you self-taught? Did you? I mean, were you part of academia at any point?
I mean,
musically?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I was self-taught. I grew up, playing piano, playing by ear, composing my own stuff, and taught myself guitar. And then in high school, I did like music theory and jazz band and jazz theory and stuff like that. So I did dig in a bit to, I learned how to read music and I learned how it worked. But my upbringing with music was mostly self-taught.
Can you talk about some of the nuances of like learning how to hear what you're playing first? I mean, what's the process of being able to develop your own individual sound if you're not part of academia. A lot of people say the first key, maybe more in melodic improvisation, is just to hear what you're playing.
Yeah.
Could you just take us through your journey?
Yeah, I guess it. I would hear so much music in my head when I was growing up, and the goal was to get it out. You know, like to find the notes that matched what was in my head. And on a piano, especially, it's pretty easy to do that. You know, like because all the keys are laid out. It's just trial and error. You just figure out what matches what's in my head. And so I spent lots of years doing that, just playing around on the piano enough till I could really naturally take whatever was in my head and just my fingers would just do it. I'm out of practice enough at piano now, and the guitar is my main instrument now, so I can't just sit down and play everything in my head anymore. But that was the main thing I was working on for a long time.
These were original compositions you were putting together?
Oh yeah,
wow.
all of it was.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean I guess the music in my head is constant and
it's beautiful.
giving. There's a lot of it all the time. There's no lack of new music in my mind. So the just like carving out the channels to get it from my imagination into the real world has been the goal.
Did you realize at a certain point that the music chose you?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to give up on music.
Because why?
My first husband wanted me to.
He was just a little bit. He was territorial.
Yeah, I think it was all subtle. He just, was very unsupportive and kind of knocked it down every chance he got, and didn't like hearing the piano and didn't like hearing, and so I just thought, you know what, I can be happy doing a lot of other things. I'll try doing all these other things. And it didn't work. I mean, the music just got louder and louder and louder. And what I feel like the songs will, if I don't take the time to write, the songs will come and track me down, knock me over, make me stop what I'm doing until I write them. So I've learned to not resist the songwriting or the music, but it takes a lot of time. It's hard to find enough time to write as much as I want to write.
And then the idea of like being completely misunderstood by people that are supposedly close to you. When did you begin to just let that baggage go and be completely liberated? Because I mean, even now, I mean,
Yeah.
Everyone has their own niche, but it's like most cats are gonna not get it.
Yeah.
And so when did you just get to that point where you say, I don't care what people feel, I'm just going to be myself? Was there a demarcation point at any point?
Was there a demarcation point?
And maybe it's still evolving.
No, I mean, I feel like I went through a little phase in my early 20s, like once I started playing music again after I got out of my first marriage. Where I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll just fit this mold, because I was in Oklahoma. Like, maybe I'll just try to fit into this, like, country music girl mold.
Oh, train wreck.
That doesn't work. Like, trying to be anybody else's career, like, trying to do some career that's already happened, like, that doesn't work, especially now in the music industry. It's like everybody's rewriting the script. You can't do what somebody else has done. You just have to do whatever you're here to do. So I think there was a transition once I moved to California. There was like, the most powerful offering I have is to share stories about my life in the way that they come out, and trying to fit it into a certain genre or a certain sound that might get radio play on XYZ radio wasn't working for me. So
well, I think you're the Chelsea, having a ball here with Chelsea Coleman already, but I mean, don't you think that, I mean, I'm sure you don't preoccupy yourself too much with it, but in pop music today, there's so many people that are quote unquote stars that actually can't perform live because they're not real musicians.
Yeah.
I mean, how
It's
do you
really
navigate?
strange.
It is, the authenticity is lacking. I mean, that's one reason I do my show.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that?
I mean, I just don't.
Not that you want to be a pop
star. I
star,
just
but-
don't pay attention to it much, you know. I mean, and I also, I guess I want to say I appreciate pop for like, there's a lot of judgment against, you know, auto tuning and against other, but like, I don't think it's a right or wrong, good or bad issue.
I dig.
It's just like a different way to make music that happens to not work very well live because the people can't actually sing very consistently in tune.
Well, yeah, that's right.
But
They
the things that they can do in the studio are really incredible, and they get these voice sounding like synthesizers, and it's kind of cool, but not, you know.
well, let's be clear. A lot of them
are
are saying to the engineer, "Hey, how did I sound?" And they say, "Terrible. Come up, we'll fix it."
Yeah.
And for our kids, I mean, I have 2 daughters. You have a son, right? You know, it's like
Yeah.
they've been having that stuff crunched into their ears for so long.
Yeah.
Are they going to develop? Are they going to know what's authentic? That's what I'm concerned about.
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, because those cats.
Like, is it false
Well, I mean,
representation of what human voices can do?
you should be able to take your act and either make
Yeah.
it completely different than the record, and that's what the audience is there for.
Yeah.
Or be able to be up there and perform the songs just the same way.
Yeah.
And just for somebody who's really just marinating in authenticity,
Yeah.
how do you get around that in the modern music world? I mean, can you talk? I mean, I saw you with Decker down and that was where we connected originally at Club Congress, but locally, you came out here, you became yourself.
Yeah.
And what do you do to get off live here?
A lot of people value authenticity here.
Right.
And I've geared my shows toward like listening room shows. Because I would rather have 60 people who show up to hear authentic, moving, somewhat emotional music, very emotional music. I'd rather that than tons of people who are kind of loud and may or may not actually care about the music. So I do a lot of house concerts. I do a lot of, I've kind of set up my life so that I just play the shows that I want to play. And I'm not taking gigs that aren't actually going to be what I feel is an authentic exchange of my art.
What if the money is? I mean, even if the money is so good, you still will.
Well,
I mean, because we all got to sing for our supper. But I mean, I applaud it. I mean,
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I take some gigs that like I know aren't ideal because I can make a little bit more money. But I have a part-time day job. Partly so that I don't have to take many of those gigs. And some people love doing that. Some people love branching out and playing all sorts of different kinds of gigs. Doing a lot of weddings and doing a lot of, corporate gigs and stuff like that. And that's, some people are really built for that. And I'm not.
Yeah, just put me to sleep.
I don't do that.
Well, we have somebody who's songs are pouring out of her head every day, all day. Why don't you play another tune? The audience is having a ball. So
Okay. Okay. Did y'all notice that this guitar is Nashville strung, which is really fun? It's like up a whole octave higher.
Oh, wow. No, it's over the heads of most of the cats.
All right. It's really fun to play guitar in that register. But I also like this one sometimes. Okay, so this one is the title track off my album, Modern Mythology.
You're going to die, but not today.
I'm not dying today. So that's.
I always was fascinated by that little thing, but I mean, you're going to die.
That's it. So I'm putting on a big show tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, called "You're Going to Die," and
this is fantastic.
Yeah, so that's one of the ways that I've navigated. What you're talking about, like pop music and stuff like that. A niche that I found here is this organization called "You're Going to Die," which we host, and I'm like an active. One of the leaders of the organization. And we host live shows that are on the theme of our own mortality, death, grief, etc. All the stuff that, all the stuff on the radio is kind of glossing right over. But, music is like made for that stuff, Like that's one of the main things music is for, I think, is to communicate and express about the hardest parts of life. And when it's in this mode of like just entertainment and escape, I don't see as much.
Yeah, I mean, pop music is made for pacification. It's not made for burning. So I think just that title. I've just been on this trip. I've been dealing with a couple of dear friends that, in different scenarios, they are coping with their own mortality.
Yeah.
And they're older than us, but it's so there. And I think people are petrified of that.
Yeah.
And the idea of being able to vibrationally sort of maybe do a correction on that, even if you're impacting one or two people, is essential.
It's huge. It's huge. Even just to give one person permission to tell their story that they thought maybe they weren't allowed to tell because it was too heavy, So like this show we're doing tomorrow, we curated a really incredible lineup of musicians and poets and storytellers, and it's at the Starline Social Club in the ballroom tomorrow night in Oakland, and we still have some tickets available.
Wow! I wish I was going to be there.
I'll post the link in the comments. It's going to be really powerful. I've sat in on some rehearsals for a few of the people who are performing, and I know all of them pretty well, so it's going to be a really powerful night. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to do this.
Sure.
Because I'm talking about You're Going to Die, we brought this show to a prison last year.
Beautiful.
Which was really powerful. And our prison program is called Alive Inside. Okay. And I wrote this one after visiting with these men in prison and hearing their stories. I borrow heavily from a Lily Watson quote in the chorus, and
people want to see your face. Look at the people.
Hi, people.
Yeah.
Hi, people.
So you were hearing a lot of despair, but also like injustice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
From these cats.
And also learning a lot about, because I asked them a lot of questions about what it's like for people to come in from the outside world and work with them and do the rehabilitation programs and whatnot. And they shared that there's a lot of people who come in with this spirit of like pitying them and seeing them as different.
Judging
them and like, oh, we can save you, we can help you. And it was so powerful to be there with this organization that comes like, we're here to help make space for your stories, and that's it. And it's not for saving or anything. It's just like because your stories are valuable and we want to hear them, and all the other people in here want to hear them. So yeah, I wrote this one. Tell me again about the eagles. Tell me again about the sky. Tell me again about your darkest night. I haven't played it for a while. Still full of stars to guide yourself by. Don't you worry about mine. Just keep shining your light on the inside. On the inside. 'Cause if you come here to save me, you're wasting your time. Come only if your liberation is bound up with mine. Tell me again about the outside. Tell me again about the fight. Tell me again how you've taken it for granted most of the time. 'Cause if you come here to save me, you're wasting your time. Come only if your liberation is bound up with mine. Oh, your liberation is bound up with mine. Oh, your liberation is bound up with mine.
Why? How did you connect with Decker?
Oh, I think, okay. How
It just
long
was
ago
kind of, he had a big band down there. And I always wonder how he's part of the Royal Potato family with a dear friend of mine, Kevin Calabro. But I just wonder about, I mean, that was a interesting band. And I'm just, I mean, how did you wind up on that circuit, you know?
I met Brandon Decker maybe 7 years ago now here in Oakland. I think at the Stork Club, which is just the strangest but most awesome little venue.
Perfect place for Decker to play.
It was great.
Yeah.
Through Graham Patzner of Whiskerman, who is my son's dad. So we're all a big family web. So yeah, Brandon's been in my family musical network for a long time, and just started singing with him. We've played a lot of shows together. I toured with him in 2014, but I hadn't sung with his band until just recently.
When did you, I mean, I can only imagine listening rooms for the acoustic stuff, but can you talk about the first time that you were able to play with a rhythm section?
Okay, so that was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There's so many good players in Oklahoma.
Well, they got
There's
that
great
great
players
shuffle
there.
out there too, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean.
But
I
wasn't
love
it?
playing there.
Did you have to adjust your own internal time feel with the rhythm set? How did
Yeah.
that? And do you play with the rhythm
Definitely.
section now, or do you just prefer to play acoustic solo?
I play with the rhythm section sometime, and I've learned how to do it.
It's a learning talk to the
curve,
peeps about
definitely.
Talk about that.
I mean, the way, matching up how it sounds in my head with how the rhythm section is playing it, and learning the language of how to communicate what I want to hear. That took a little while. Drums were very foreign to me when I first started playing with a drummer. Luckily, all the drummers I played with are incredible. So drummers tend to be able to interpret really vague language about what the songwriter wants to hear, and you know, deliver something that sounds really close to what I was.
Do you have to?
imagining.
Can you relay that stuff non-verbally to them, or does it always have to be?
Yeah, sometimes it's nonverbal. Sometimes it's just me putting out a beat and like, this is where I want, you know, or this is, and often it's like, this is where I want it to be more spacious. I don't know what more spacious means for like when the drummer hits the snare. I don't know how to say that. I don't know, like, I want you to hit the snare on these beats. I just know, like, during this section of the song, drop out a little bit and be more spacious, and here, and you know, I know how to talk about double time and half time and whatnot now too, and use that effect, especially in some of my country songs, which is really fun. It's really fun to play with the rhythm section on the country songs.
How does it change your music? Does it swing harder, do you think? I mean, maybe it's self-evident.
Yeah, it drives a bit more. I mean, there's some songs, like the ones that I played so far on this show, probably aren't gonna be songs I ever play with the rhythm section. There's
maybe brushes.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a lot of songs that are more built for that. Mm-hmm. And you know, maybe I'll close with one of the songs that's a little more built for, that's like a little more upbeat, a little more of a country flavor. But it's worth it to learn how to communicate with a rhythm section, because it offers so much. My album, I have, you know, at least half the songs are full band on the album, and just taking a bunch of incredible musicians and whatever they have in their heads and letting that add to my vision for the music is really worth it. And it does, you know, it's a learning curve to communicate about it, for sure. I mean, because you don't want to be like, I don't like the thing you just played, but sometimes you have to say, I don't like that as much as the other thing. But there's ways to talk about it, like, instead of like, I don't like that, it's, you know, I'd like to hear it this way. Can we hear these two different ways back to back and see which one feels better?
I mean, do you ever take the Miles Davis approach where, you know, someone will come up and say, what do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? And then you'll just kind of turn your back on them because you want them to play what they're all about? I mean, you're bringing people into your band to be themselves.
Yeah.
So Coltrane used to go up to Miles and say, what do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? And Miles used to turn his back on him. And one day John Coltrane realized Miles wanted him to play what he felt.
Yeah.
So as opposed to saying, I don't like that,
yeah.
Sometimes do you ever just do something where it's a little bit unorthodox, where someone's like, what do you want me to play? And you just don't even answer them.
Oh, totally. So, I mean, I answer them. I don't turn my back on people, but I mean,
Miles loved turning his back on
especially in the recording studio. And in performances. I mean, I have a few players that sit in with me that I just trust them to the ends of the earth. Like, they are gonna play amazing stuff. Like Rory Cloud on guitar. He'll just show up. He'll run the songs with me like once,
and he'll just burn it through. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Amazing. And Graham Patzner, same thing, on violin, guitar, piano. He just needs to hear the song once and then he masters it. On my album, he produced a lot of the songs on it. I just went for it. You know, he's a multi-instrumentalist.
Can you hold up the album for the audience, please?
Yeah.
All right, this is Chelsea Coleman. That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
And yeah, letting someone else have free reign on a song that I've written is not easy because, you know, I don't know if I have to explain that one. It's not easy.
No.
But it's worth it. And also it's worth it as long as I have the strength to say, I actually want to hear another version. And it won't even necessarily be, I want you to do this thing differently. Maybe it's just like, hey, try something else. Let's see. That one didn't quite sit the way I wanted it to. And so there's still a lot of freedom as long as you have enough time in the studio, which can be an issue sometimes, to just try the whole song a few different ways in a few different styles. I love doing it that way because then everybody gets to have their freedom and there's not like a rigid thing. But then some songs, I have the symphony in my head and I know exactly what I want to hear. And so one of the songs on this album, I worked with Kendra McKinley as the producer and did like note by note, every single note. is in the place that I chose it to be. And she guided the whole thing along the way and played a bunch of the instruments, and that was a powerful way to do it too. To, you know, it's like some songs I have the fully fleshed out visions, and some songs I don't. Some songs I'm just like, oh, this is a song, let's all play it. You have a sketch. Let's find out what happens.
You have a sketch and let them fill it in.
Yeah, and then other times I do hear I hear all the instrumentation, I hear the harmonies, I hear everything exactly in a certain place, and I want to bring that to life. And that was kind of a bold thing for me to do, because I never done that before. I never gone into the studio and said, I want this to be exactly how I want it to be. I've always been like, oh, yeah, like, let's try a bunch of stuff and everybody can add their thing. I kind of felt like...
Great vibe. Such a good vibe.
Yeah, so it's great to know how to do it both ways, I think.
There's only two letters that separate magic and music, and part of my show deals in the metaphysical, and I'd like you to talk about an experience where you left your physical body on the bandstand.
Oh.
And you can say it never happened, but there are cats that have never done drugs ever in their lives, and they saw themselves, mainly from fatigue, they would see themselves on the side of the stage playing.
Oh,
they
that's
literally,
fascinating.
or they were up above, like these train tracks, and they can sort of, I mean, have you had any sort of out-of-body experiences?
While I'm performing on stage, I have not had a straight-up out-of-body experience, no.
Can you talk about how the magic of music for Chelsea Coleman?
Yeah, the magic of music for me. I don't, like, when I'm performing, I don't often, like, get lost in the music. Like, I'm a very, like, earth-based, grounded person. Like, my whole personality is that. I don't want to take a bunch of drugs and fly away while I'm on stage. I love being totally aware of all my surroundings and being very present. I really enjoy that way of performing, and it's especially doing like listening room style, like, and doing what we do at You're Going to Die, which is like people sitting right in front of you, talking about really heavy things, singing about really heavy things, looking them right in the eye. That is intimidating and very intense, but I prefer that over like being out of my body while I'm performing.
Or being at a place where people are just talking over you, you know, in a bar setting where,
totally.
you know, that kind of, you know, where it's more, it's not the number one priority. But yeah, I guess that's the point is like, how have you learned from an entertainment perspective to lock that audience's attention, to get their attention? Oh,
I mean, my favorite way is to get quieter.
I love that. You know what?
That's my favorite
Paul
way.
Bley, Gary Peacock, the old school jazzers, they were playing trio music, sometimes avant-garde, and it was always the thing. The question was, what do you do if the audience is talking too loud? And they'd always say, play softer.
Yeah.
What does that do? What does that do, like sonically? Like all of a sudden people are like, what? Then it wraps.
People notice. So one thing, if the music is loud enough, then people can talk over it. And it's so natural for people to talk to each other. I find myself doing it all the time at shows. You know, if I kind of know the music, but I don't, you know it that well, then like, and I see somebody I know, it's like, it's really easy to talk over music if it's loud enough, if the music is loud enough. Because you notice that if your talking is keeping other people from hearing the music, that's more noticeable. So if you get quieter so that when somebody talks, they notice they're not just blending in with the noise, they're over the noise.
Right.
People notice that. Unless they're super drunk, and then whatever. You know.
So you get quiet, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, I'm too loud, and they look, and then they're locked in more.
And then they pay attention. Yeah. Or there's at least, it gives me a moment to grab people's attention. It's temporary. You know, it's like, if I don't get them in that moment, then they'll start talking again. Because the noise kind of, you know, goes down, and then it just like builds up little by little. But that's my favorite way to do it. It works. Definitely works better than getting louder. For sure.
But before we wrap, I just want you to talk to the world about, the world needs love now. I mean, there's a lot of love can be expressed in many different ways, but How do you bring love to the world?
I'm going to answer that question and the other question about the magic at the same time.
Perfect.
So the magic for me happens during the songwriting process. And then the performance is just a vehicle for that. And I love the performance. I love it. It often feels magical, but it's more just like the way to get that song out to the world. It's less about the event of performing and more about delivering the song. So the songwriting process, like the magic is in when I stop resisting the songs. And the songs are usually incredibly humbling and hard to write. Almost every song I've written, I've had a moment of like, I don't want to say that out loud. And I do it anyway. And that's one of the ways that I offer love to the world, is by being vulnerable.
I love it.
And by saying like, I'm scared to say this. I'm embarrassed to say this. I don't even know if I have permission to say this. I don't know how people will think of me if I say it like this, and doing it anyway. And that's a huge offering. And I want to like give myself credit for that, because it is like, you know, there's all the work that goes into planning the shows and all that. There's like a bunch of work that goes into it. But like the like emotional and mental work of like letting myself be vulnerable, like that's a huge offering. And I love doing it. I mean, the alternative is to not do it, and everything feels weird when I don't do it. Everything feels all stuck and
yeah. I mean, to me, I have to go and make these movies every day on the road. I mean, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I have to get stuff out of my system, and I have to do it with the most diverse cross sections of humanity, because I'm a humanitarian. And if I didn't do it, or if I didn't show up, or if I had hid under my covers, I just wouldn't grow.
Yeah.
I think that's how you grow.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately.
And if I'm not growing, I feel weird, and I don't like it.
Well, and also, I just want to say you are fearless in the sense that you also are, I mean, you don't wait around. You create your own opportunities in the sense that you are making a lot of movies yourself.
Oh, totally.
On new media, you're not waiting for somebody to come along. And I think that it's emboldening for a younger generation of women, my daughters in particular, just to be themselves. Yeah. Because I actually think that women are going to help us through this time, if we can get through this time, as leaders. And hopefully music as a social consciousness factor will be part of it. So why don't you finish with a tune that you feel like in your heart?
Okay. I'm trying to think if I have something like on that theme. Oh my gosh, is it okay if I just play a super heavy one?
Do it.
Oh, good.
Heavier the better.
For women. Okay, I haven't played it for a while, so I hope I
This is a song about women, or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man. Okay.
All right, get the Kleenex out here.
All right.
Yeah. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you.
Disclaimer, I might forget some words, whatever. Y'all will get over it. Okay. This song is called Proof. You took my pride. You ruined years of my life. And I've been trying to prove otherwise. Prove that I'm not the kind of woman who find herself in your kind of harm's way. And prove that I'm not the kind of woman who can't keep herself safe. would not blame the man. In the face of oppression, leaving and prove that I'm not the kind of woman would find herself in your kind of harm's way. I'd prove that I'm not the kind of woman who can't keep herself safe. I have been but if I'd said no a third time, if I hadn't stood by your side, if I didn't put myself in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe then I'd call it what it was. An assault on my sovereignty, a series of choices you made that brought great harm to me. So I'm handing back the baton. This is your job. To hold yourself in step with the new reign of justice.
Love you forever, Chelsea Coleman. Thank you for being part of the program.
Thank you, Jake.
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.